My name is Dean, I'm in long-term recovery, and this is Inside Addiction. I want to welcome Katie and her mom, June, to the show. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks.
So, daughter and mother who's a recovering alcoholic and an addict. How was it growing up for you, Katie, being in the house with a person addicted to alcohol and drugs?
Well, I guess to sum it up, she wasn't really in the house. It was hard as a kid, especially because my little sister was born when I was 6. And my older sister, I think she was old to know what was going on. I mean, I was old enough to know, but I couldn't really comprehend it very well. And so it was a lot harder on her because she knew and she could see a lot of it. And so I sort of took on the role as taking care of everybody and making sure the house was clean and doing laundry, and I was only 6. So I mean, it was really hard.
So at 6 years old, you were kind of playing the role of...
Yeah. I would cook. I mean, we had a babysitter, things like that, who came generally to pick us up from school and things like that. But other than that, yeah, I was taking care of my little sister. I can remember, holding her. She's an infant. She's asleep, rocking her to sleep, laying down, giving my dad his ice water because he loved ice water, and doing a whole bunch of things around the house. That really wasn't supposed to be meant for me.
So June, let me ask you, how was it raising a child in active addiction?
Well, I was so torn. I used to fight with my husband about how I loved my children, and he would tell me that actions spoke louder than my actions didn't show that, and it was tearing me up inside, but it was like I was obsessed and possessed by my drug of choice, and the streets were always calling me.
At what age did you start using?
I started experimenting with marijuana about 9 or 10 years old.
Okay. And then it kind of just progressed?
Yeah, I didn't start, I progressed very gradually, because through grade school it was just marijuana, but once I became 18 it was cocaine. And then in the 90s crack cocaine hit the streets, and that just really took my soul, I would say. And I spent the 1980s smoking crack cocaine, drinking. I met Katie's father at that time, and he was but he was more of a social drinker. He really didn't know my demons. Oddly enough, when I got pregnant with Katie's older, Michelle, I put down the drugs.
You did?
I put down the drugs once.
Cold turkey?
Cold turkey. 9 months, stopped, gave birth, Next day, using.
The day after you gave birth.
Well, the day after I was released from the hospital.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Katie. Put down the drugs, 9 months, gave birth, out of the hospital, started using. And that's when I started using heroin.
How did addiction affect you as a mother?
Well, like I said, it was very because I was so torn. I loved my children. I wanted to be with them, but I wanted to get high. And I knew better than to drag them around with me. Their father was responsible, so I would leave the house, them and him, and just go out and party for days, and then come home and get myself some food and a shower, and then back out. You know, so it was difficult. He, like Katie said, I wasn't a mother. I was like just using the house to sleep and eat.
You describe how mom's addiction affected you, because there's two different perceptions here.
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was really hard, especially on Mother's Day, because all the kids would, be writing their mom's cards, and I'd be like, Happy Mother's Day, Dad, like that. And my mom would tell us that she would be coming home and didn't really show up on time or things like that. And I guess it was hard to learn to trust people and be dependent on others. I mean, I was dependent on my father because I knew he was going to be there and things like that. But I knew when my mom came home that she wasn't going to come back. I didn't know when she was going to come back. I remember I used to have her hair. I don't even remember that. I used to have her cut her hair, so I would have something of her. And I think that really kept with me because, yeah, and I think that it really stayed because still, I don't trust as well. I always think the worst in people before until they show me that they can be trusted. And I'm really hard. I still don't depend on anyone, I don't think, as much. I mean, now I depend on my mom because she's recovered and she has help, but I still try to take hold of the house and still try to take care of my little sister and things like that.
So mom not being present does not only for Mother's Day, birthdays, is it safe to say Christmas, Easter?
Yep, everything. New Year's, we would get a call. She was gonna come, never really came. It got to a point where my dad wouldn't really let her in the house, and I would have to see her through a window outside and see her outside and yeah, it was hard.
So today you can sit on a couch together, and that's 10 years in the making. You have 10 years sober. Tell me how recovery has changed you, not only as a person, but as a mom.
Well, when I got my life together, it was at the perfect time because their father passed away, and I was able to be responsible. I was scared. I'll tell you, I got the call. I remember they were visiting me for the weekend. I got the call that he had a massive heart attack, was dead. And the first thing I did was I walked out of the apartment, I left them sleeping on the floor, and I started to walk to the bar.
And how far into your recovery was that?
Well, I was clean for almost 2 years, but I didn't consider that my recovery because I was in a day therapeutic community living there. So,
in a controlled environment.
Right. So maybe 6 months. I got the call, I went to the apartment, leaving them, and my intention was just to get shit-faced drunk in the bar.
How old were they when you walked out?
Well, he died in 2006.
I was 11.
11. However, halfway to the bar, I said to myself, what are you doing? You just spent 22 months in daytime.
It's a lot of treatment.
And the minute that you have an obstacle, you're running and ready to throw it away. So I did what I was taught. I took out my cell phone and I called this woman and I said, listen, I'm in trouble, I need help. And she said, I'll be right there. She picked me up, brought me back to the apartment, got the kids dressed, and we decided not to tell them until we got to Brooklyn. And that's what I did. That's what I did. But It was scary. It was really scary because I really never had to be responsible for them. I always could leave them with somebody while he was alive. And I knew that they'd be okay, you know? So now it was all on me, and I was worried because I had real life worries. I had financial worries. I
Bills
had,
to pay.
Right, I had therapeutic worries because they lost their father. Here they are with me. They don't trust me. They don't think I'm going to be successful. I had to take them out of Brooklyn. They're in a new place. I mean, it was really difficult. It was really difficult.
In the course of the past 10 years, how has your relationship with Katie changed? Has that been a long time coming, or was it just automatic switch, mom sober, things are good?
No. You know, out of my 3 children, I think that it was the most difficult for Katie. Last year, I received a letter from Katie from school for Mother's Day. And in that letter was the first time that she ever told me that she forgave me.
Wow. 9 years later.
And that she understood better. And that proud of me.
How has your relationship with mom changed over the course of 10 years?
I mean,
learned to trust her.
well, she had to take care of us.
We know that the old saying, give time. But how much?
Yeah, she had to take care of us, and I mean, I always think with recovery, there's any point in time that you could relapse. Doesn't matter how long that you've been sober, and I think that's what kept me from trusting her a lot. Because I would think, you know, something really bad would happen, and I'd be like, I'm just waiting for the day.
Waiting for the other.
I'm just waiting for it, and I was ready. I mean, I've always waited for that, but it never came. And I think that I'm in school, I'm in college, I'm learning about these things, and I'm learning how the mind works and how addiction works and things like that. I'm able to understand it a little more. It's a little hard for me to trust. Forgive, I mean, I forgive her. You know, I understand what was happening and everything, but I think it's gotten better now, I would say mostly. I'm still very personal. I keep things to myself. I don't like to say anything. I don't really talk to her about a lot of things unless she comes to me first about it. Yeah, and that's how it's always been.
She kind of put the ball in her court.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go back to before you went to treatment. Were there certain stigmas being a mom of 3 that prevented you from getting treatment? Or what was it, that pivotal moment that you said, this is it, I've had enough, so to say? You know, people talk about bottoms, you know, because I've worked with, and, you know, personally and professionally in a capacity of, you know, many women that when they have kids, they say, okay, that's enough is enough. And I think, well, were they really an addict?
Yeah, no,
You know?
I never said enough was enough. My hand was forced. I was arrested. And I had a choice to face incarceration or go to drug treatment. So I chose drug treatment. However, as twisted and distorted as it might sound, when I agreed to treatment, I had no intention of changing at all.
Just didn't want to go to jail.
Right.
That's a no-brainer. Treatment.
Right. So I went to and I was very resistant to the whole process for like the first, I would say, 6 months. But then the women of the Swan Lake community at that time did an extended group, which was like a 72-hour group, no sleep.
Wow.
And it was during that group that I surrendered.
Growing up, Katie, how did mom's addiction affect like your friendships? Did you have, you know, did you have sleepovers? Have your friends come over?
No. I don't think I've ever had a sleepover when I was living in Brooklyn. I went to a friend's house. I went to their houses. I slept over at their houses, but I don't think any of my friends in Brooklyn can say that they've ever set foot in my house, besides one person, which was Bonnie, and that was the only person my dad even let in the house. Other than that, I was always going to a friend's house and staying with them from time to time, or going to my sister's house and maybe having them come to my sister's house, but it was never in my home.
June, let me ask you a question. Ever worried about Katie becoming an alcoholic or an addict with the predisposition? to the family?
Not Katie, but my oldest child, yes.
You were relapsing?
Not anymore.
Why?
Because she has a lot on her plate, and she's assistant director of Daytop now. And I think when you have something to work towards and you know people are looking up to you, it's harder to relapse, especially working at a rehabilitation center, especially.
Yeah. What are your favorite memories growing up?
Favorite memory?
Yeah. Do you have some?
I remember, I guess, being in the car going with my dad to plumbing sites, and he would be singing and raising Aretha Franklin up on the radio, clapping, and I think that's the only memory that I have. Oh, besides his, okay, so one time, it was on his birthday in 2006, right before he died, and we went to Outback Steakhouse, and when we were driving back, my little sister Angel, she wouldn't put on her seatbelt, so we told her that the police were gonna arrest and put on her seatbelt. And she started crying, and then we had her hide in the car, and we were like, they're gonna come for you. That was the memory I have. Really, that was fun.
Can I ask you, what were some of the worst memories that you have of your mom's addiction and active use?
It would be seeing her getting arrested. I think I've seen that once or twice, not too many times. I remember one time we were in the kitchen and she was sitting in the kitchen. I'm assuming she was on drugs at some point in time, and she looked at me and asked me if I had a cigarette for her.
And how old were you?
I can't even remember, but I was no older than 8 years old. And she asked me if I had a cigarette. I was like, what? Are you serious? Do I have a cigarette? Can't even buy them. What do you mean cigarette? And I think that was a really weird I have. I didn't know what was, I thought it was a joke. Also maybe just seeing my dad yelling and fighting and things like that, because it was hard on him as well, as you can imagine. And yeah, I mean, I have a lot of, I would say, not so fun memories. It wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible. My childhood wasn't terrible. My dad just as best as he could. We went to a great school. I went to a private school. We had babysitters and everything. So I wouldn't say it was all bad. It's just
Without mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. How has mom's addiction affected your relationships as an adult? Are you in a relationship?
Yes, now I am. It's really hard for me to trust and to open up. I mean, I say what's on my mind so quick. I'm quick to say what's on my mind, but it's really just me talking, and I'd say how I feel exactly. It's really hard for me to depend. I still don't depend on people, and I don't want to depend, I don't think. I'm independent, so that's great, but I think that is that it made me independent, so I don't need anybody, and I don't need someone to be, I don't need to be in a relationship, and I don't need to depend on people, because I know I can take care of myself. But it's just hard for me to trust.
So the relationships that you've been in as an adult, do you find yourself hyper vigilant when it comes to alcohol, or like even, you know?
Yeah, that's one of the first things I ask. If you're completely 100% sober, then I will not be with. Doesn't matter what it is, if it's alcohol or if marijuana. If you took a hit, that better be the last. Not when you're with me. Not at all. Nothing.
What advice would you give to a child of an addict or an alcoholic?
That there's hope. I remember you know how they always say wish upon a star. So I was a kid, and I would always, in the nighttime, I would always look out the window and wish on a star, and I would wish that my mom would get better. And I know that doesn't really happen, but it was more, I would just say that there is people that can help you, and there is people that care for you, and that you can, and just do as best as you can, and take from that, learn from it, because that's what I did. I learned from it, and now I vow that I will never do any type of drug or anything like, and I have kept that because I know what it's like. And so I would just say that I know what it's like, and I know what you're going through, and it's okay.
What advice would you give to a mom that's has 3 kids, maybe one of them's 9 years old, one of them's 6 years, struggling with alcohol or addiction?
It doesn't get better. You know, if you're actively using, it just gets worse. And it's time to put the substances down, be honest with yourself, and help. There's a lot of really good programs out there. There's good programs like Women and Children. Before something awful happens.
June, I want to read something to you that I found in regards to adult children of alcoholics. The best way of describing how children cope with substance abuse is by applying these 3 rules. Don't talk, don't trust, and don't feel. Moreover, to deal with the situation, they react by taking on one of the following roles. The child, successful at home and at school, always taking care of others, leaders and decision makers. The lost child or adjuster, who no longer carries what is happening within the family, spending time on their own, away from the family, avoid drawing attention to themselves. The placater, always putting others first, warm, empathetic, and sensitive, always trying to make others feel better. And the scapegoat, acting out unacceptable behavior such as fighting or stealing, getting attention in negative ways. Would you identify Katie as a child as any one of those?
Oh, absolutely. Katie's the responsible child. She always has been.
I had to be.
Are you able to identify that you had to be the responsible child as well?
I knew it. My dad told me so. Nothing was ever sugar-coated for me. I knew what was going on. I was told what was going on, and I was told I needed to help. And that's what I did.
On adult children of alcoholics or addicts. As adults, isolated and uneasy with other people, especially authorities, they become people pleasers, having lost their own identity in their process. They usually have dependent personality, are terrified of abandonment, and willing to do almost anything to hold on to a relationship. That doesn't sound like it describes you.
No.
Why do you think that is? What do you think you took away from your experience that doesn't fit you into some of the normal, abnormal criteria of an adult child, an alcoholic, or an addict?
I saw what happened, and I saw my mom deteriorating, and I knew that that is not what I wanted to be like. And I especially knew that I was a freshman, and one of my teachers, he went, I don't know, he was saying something, and he told us, you are all going to end up like your parents. You're all going to end up drug addicts, and you're all going to end up alcoholics. And I was so angry because I knew that was not going to be me. And I kept that for so long because I saw it, and I knew I was a child. I had to take care of a child. I didn't even know myself what I was doing. And I never want to put anyone through that.
It's interesting because working in a professional capacity, it almost becomes sometimes, I feel as though, and in June, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, a lot of the self-fulfilling prophecy that we see with alcoholism and addiction, when we see people that come into our programs, you know, and then you talk to them and it's like, my dad was an alcoholic, my grandfather was an alcoholic, my great-grandfather was an alcoholic. But you found a way to almost use your mom's example of a good example of a bad example. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's rare, Katie. She really is. I'm very.
Any closing thoughts that you have, Katie? I have to say, because there's so many, you're not a person in recovery yourself. No. And it takes a lot of courage to be able to share your story. Mm. I mean, there's Al-Anon and Alateen and some different sober support networks for you. And then now you're going to Sage College for?
Russell Sage for psychology, yep.
Okay.
Right now.
So any final thoughts that you have or something you'd like to share with people?
I gave myself a reason to hold on, and I gave myself a reason to not do everything that I saw. And you can make promises and that's exactly what I did. And I think that's really important, especially growing up like that and seeing family members go through things like that, is to make promises to yourself and learn from it, take what you see and know that that's not supposed to happen. You know, you're supposed to live a healthy life, and that's what I would say.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Our pleasure. Thank you for having us.